Hello again, everybody. I'm Rusty with Rusty Brown Photography, and thank you so very much for being here today on the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about editing portraiture, specifically my editing workflow for portraits, which is different than my editing workflow for non-portraits. Now let's face it, there are a lot of different ways to edit photographs out there. No one way is, I think, better or worse than the other. It really comes down to comfort, what you like, what you don't like. What you find difficult, you will not do. Right? Let's be honest with it. And you and only you know what look you're trying to attain through your photographs. So today we're going to look at my particular workflow for editing portraits. I'm going to show you what I do and why, and explain every step along the way. To do that, we're going to have to go upstairs to the studio. So let's go. Okay, so we're here in studio. We're going to get ready to walk through and edit. A couple things I want to say off the bat is today I'm not laved up. I'm trying something different for this type of video. I've got my Rode Video Go on the camera that I'm talking on now, but once I get into the sequence of events for editing, I'm going to switch over to the Yeti because I'm going to be in the edit for the balance of the video, and then I'll come back at the end and close it out. But I didn't think I would wear a lab for this, so this may give me a little more freedom with which to work. So for me, I use something called frequency separation, a form of frequency separation, not the end-all be-all frequency separation, because if you look at different people, you'll find different methodologies. Some people use so many steps of it, some people use others. I have a particular workflow with my frequency step that works for me. So what I'm going to do is we're going to dive in. I'm going to show you those steps and see if it's something that could work for you. It took me a long time to get to the point where I found a nice rhythm in my editing. And now that I have it, this is kind of what I stick with, again, particularly for portraiture. So we've got Hunter up on Lightroom and on Photoshop, ready to begin the edit. Let's dive in. I'll walk you through and then come back and give you a couple comments at the end. Thanks. Let's go. Oh, one other thing. You may notice that today I'm going to be using the Wacom tablet. Haven't talked about it much. You may have seen it in some other shots. It's usually at that end of the desk. But for the type of editing that I'm doing, I've just grown accustomed to using the Wacom for the edits. We may talk about that in a future video, but if you don't have one and you're editing at this level, you may find that this gives you the ability to be more precise in what you got to do. All right? Anyway, let's dive in. Thanks. So we're starting the develop module, right? As you can see up here on the top right, and I tend to look over here at the histogram first to give me an idea of what I have to work with. Again, I'm only going to do so much work here in Lightroom on the first pass. With that, I like to first take a look at the white balance, and I just toggle between as shot and auto. You see when I go here, it looks kind of greenish to me with the auto. So I'll go back to as shot, and in some cases I'll make an adjustment, you know, either in the temperature color, but here what I like to do is bring the orange slider down just a little bit to take some of the orange hue out. At this point, that's all I'm doing. Next thing I want to do is right click and go edit, and then edit in Photoshop. And you always want to select this top button, edit with a copy of Lightroom adjustments. So when you click there and open it, it'll bring that image right into Photoshop, which is what we want to do. From there, the first thing that we need to do is we need to create another layer over here. So when you do a Control J, that'll copy the existing layer, and then you just rename it. The first layer that I like to work with is called Spot Removal. We'll type that in here. Now with this layer, I'm just looking for, you know, some things that I might have to remove. Again, Hunter has some really good skin, not a whole lot for me to remove, but what I do is I like to zoom in, find the things that I think will need to be removed, and that's what this particular spot removal layer is for. You click over here and you look at the spot healing brush tool. This is what you're going to use, and then you look up at the top, and these are kind of the settings you want. Just normal, pick your brush size,
Sometimes you'll have to expand or reduce the size, but as you can see here, just hover over the spot, click, and because it's using content aware filtering, it will really make it look good, just getting rid of little moles and things like we have right here. And then I just scroll the image around to see, is there anything else that I need to remove? Like right here on the stomach, there are a couple of moles. We'll get that one and this one. Probably all I see right now for spot removal. And again, I'm just, oh, there's one here. We're going to zoom in on that one. Now, when you have one that's close to an edge, like this is close to the lip, I make the selection smaller, but I bring the picture up so I can get just what I need to remove right there. And you'll see throughout this tutorial that I expand the image and reduce it, to make it much easier to do what I have to do. So we're going to make another layer again with another Control J. And this one I like to call skin tone. Basically, it's try to find a sample of her skin color to use to balance some of the areas. Like you can see here in the face, you have some redness. Right below the eye, you have a different shade of skin. So I get the eyedropper tool and just start playing around, right? And you can see over there on the left, every time I click, what it changes to. So I'm just looking, and as you can see, I don't want to mess too much with this. Like at the nose, you see some redness. You see this texture here on the forehead? We want to keep that, and you'll see how that plays out later. So I'm just using the eyedrop tool, find a color that I like. Next, I just pick a brush, click on that. Here though, the important thing is that the opacity should be extremely low. I usually stay at 7 or 8%. If you get any higher than that, it really, I think, destroys the image. Once you get that pretty low and you got your brush size ready to go, you're just going to start painting it in. Now remember, this is progressive, so once I start clicking with the pen, I don't let up on it until I've done a complete first pass, because every time you brush over it, you're adding another small, light 8% adjustment that could change the outlook. So as you can see here, I'm just kind of coloring in with the color that we picked off of the eyedropper tool all around the face, just to balance out some of the skin tone. Not a whole lot, and some of it, quite honestly, you may not even be able to see with the naked eye. So as I speed this process up, I'm only doing a single pass here, right? On the body, stomach, arms. You just kind of go through, and again, try to keep the pressure on it for the entire time. And then once you're done, you kind of come back out, take a look at it. So now we're going to create another layer. This one's going to be called blur. Now we're getting ready to get into frequency separation. So then we're going to duplicate the blur layer, and we're going to call that one texture. Once you've created those two layers, the next thing we're going to want to do is shift click, or control click, highlight them both, come over here on the left to layer, and we're going to group these layers together. So you just scroll down, hit group layer, and you can see group 1 there. Now I want to open that group up and go to the first layer, which is the blur layer, right here. Deactivate by clicking right there on the left side. You want to deactivate the texture layer. We're only going to do blur now. Then we come up and we do filter, blur, Gaussian blur. This is the first step in frequency separation. Look at your radius here. You're going to have to play with that. That first radius should be pretty low. Low meaning less than 10 for most people. A number from 6 to 8, let's go with 7. That's fine. I just want a light blur right there. You click OK. Now we're going to go over to the texture layer and reactivate it, right? So now that it's active, we're going to come over here to the image button at the top. We're going to apply image. Again, this is all part of your frequency separation. So if you click on apply image, you get this dialog box here. The layer that we're going to be working with is the blur layer. So you come over here where it says merge and hit that drop down, and there's the one that we named blur. You want to select that. Next up is the blending. We don't want multiply. We actually want to do subtract. So you hit the drop down, go down to subtract, and don't worry about how funky this image looks. It's going to be fine. Last thing you want to do is your scale and your others should be set to 2 and 128 respectively. And when you do that and click OK, it should look like a steel print. You can barely see Hunter in there, and you see bits of the image there, and it's all grayed out. That's what we want here. And once you have that, you can go over and click OK. We're going to go over to the right there where it says normal. We're going to change that to linear light, and that'll bring the image back to something that looks more normal. You hit the drop down, come over here to linear light, and we'll do a selection right there, and it comes back. Now comes a step in frequency separation that I do that some others don't, but I think it's important. You go up and you deactivate the texture layer again, activate only the blur layer, and what we want to do now is go through and erase anything that we don't want to have a blur effect. Mainly eyes, hair, clothing, all of that stuff now will have to be erased out. What we want to do next is come over here, click the eraser tool, and now what we're going to do for the next few minutes is select the size that we want, and we're going to go in and we're going to do things around the hair, around the eyes, the eyebrows, the lips, all of those areas. We want to bring that back. So I get the size right based on the way I've got the screen, and I'll bring the screen up and back, and I just slowly start painting over the areas that I don't want a blur effect. Eyebrows, the eyes, naturally, right? This is going to help us down the road, and you'll see how once we get to the end. We want to make sure that we get the lips as well. In some cases, I have to make my brush smaller or the image larger, or both. And I go nice and slow here just to kind of make sure I get the edge. And as you can see, all the areas that I'm painting over are coming back. Now I'm speeding this up. This is actually a little slower process. And you want to kind of take your time here, but the idea of this tutorial is to give you an idea. As you can see, as I paint over the hair, it comes back. Let me zoom in here so you can see that. It comes back really, really sharp. Why? Because when you do that initial Gaussian blur, you're blurring the entire image. So anything in that image got blurred, you have to bring it back. Very slowly, I made the brush smaller to get these little fine strands of hair, as you can see here. Just like that, bringing them all back. And this is where it takes some time, folks. So, you got to be willing to put the time in. On average, it probably takes me an hour, hour and a half per image. So here, and again, Hunter has a lot of body art, some really cool colors and things like that. So this image does take longer because there's so many things I have to bring back. Now I go over every inch of every tattoo that's visible in the image. And you can really take your time in here when you're doing this type of image. It's okay to save and walk away and come back because you really want to get the detail. Next up, in any shot, if there's clothing, you want to do the same thing. You can see the detail around the edges of the lingerie. You have to bring that out. You can tell it's colorful. Okay, that's great. But when you do what I'm doing here, it really makes the item stand out. You can actually see the fabric. But more importantly, I think it really makes the colors pop, which is really going to help our image look good in the end. So what we're going to do next is we're going to activate the texture layer, right? You can turn it off and on, and you can see right here what's happening, right? So next up, we're going to get into phase 2. So we've got blur selected, but we do have the active layer turned on, so the whole thing looks sharp. Now we're going to do the second round of blurring. So you hit your lasso tool up here on the left. And what we're going to do now is draw around the areas that we want to do our frequency sep in. So I like to do the frequency separation in big chunks. So I'm slowly drawing around the skin area. Now I'm trying not to hit the areas that we've already erased. I haven't seen it done this way on any other thing, but this really works for me. So you pick an area. We're back to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, but this time you're going to want a higher number than our original number, and it can vary throughout different areas of the face. So with Hunter, I choose 20. Click OK, and it maintains that detail, and it's starting to really look good. I do the nose area last, and I'll explain why here in a moment. So next up, you keep that lasso tool active and you find an area and you draw the next area. See how I'll zoom in here? The next area that's going to get this applied. So we'll start here. Go all the way back. And I'm going at regular speed here for the face, but I'll speed up for the rest in the interest of time. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. That number is defaulted at 20 now. I like it. I'll hit OK. Next to last area is the chin area and under the lip. Now you should be able to do like a Control F to bring this in, but for me, I like to repeat each and every step because there's been times when I've done the Control F, it didn't work out. Now for this area, for whatever reason, at least with Hunter, a value of 20 is way too much. So every time I do one of her images from the nose down to the mouth, I have to go to a much smaller value. Watch what happens if we do it here with the 20 like the rest of the face. Look at how distorted and messed up it looks. It doesn't work. So with her, I go to a single digit of 7. It gives a much more realistic look. And now I'm done with the face and I move to the neck. So keep in mind the last value that we set was 7 for that nose area. We're going to need more for the neck, but not as much as we use for the face. And you can play with these. I encourage it so you can see what works. So here when I go over and I do Gaussian blur, 7 doesn't do much, but if I take it to like 15, yeah, I like that better. That's pretty cool. And it tells me I can probably use 15 for the rest of her chest and neck area. So as I speed it up here, I'm going through now and I'm just drawing, going out, looking. Big area right here. Gaussian blur, 15, okay. Same area on the other side of the chest. Again, only impacting those areas that we want that texture. Now again, for the tutorial, I'm leaving all these on the body like I did with the neck, right? A radius of 15, but you could change all of these. And I'll show you if it looks like it's too much, I'll show you how we make that adjustment right over here. Look at the opacity and look how the image moves. You can always slide your opacity down right there on the right. So once I'm done with all of the frequency step, I'd slide it down to the eye like right here, right at 70-something%. Looks good. We want to do a file and a save as at this point, right? Now we're ready to jump back over into Lightroom. So when you click save as here, you want to give it a name. And you want to keep it as a TIFF. Again, I didn't flatten mine out. I don't flatten them out. I'd rather have the layers. And when you do save, it's going to give you a couple warning dialog boxes because it's going to be a big file. I like no image compression at all right there. When you click OK, it's telling you that it's going to be a large file. And I'm okay with that. If you look up here, you can see where it's doing saving and it's starting to scroll because again, it is a big file. Once you do these and you leave those layers open, these images can be anywhere from 300 to 700 megabyte files. Now we can drop right back into Lightroom and you'll see as we do that, we've got that image now. So I go to develop and this is where we're going to do the final step of the edit. So we go over here. I like to use the adjustment brush to start. You select that, you get to pick out some unique things. It doesn't apply to the whole image. It applies to wherever you put the adjustment brush. So for me, I like to start off with the, like we'll say, like with the hair. And if you click on the adjustment brush, these are the areas that you can impact. So I don't want to do anything with exposure. All I want to work on, right, so I zero every value out that may have been from the last one. And you can pick your brush size as you can see. Now I'm going to pick shadows because I want to bring out the shadows that are inside the hair. So for me, this value of 55 works really well, and you just color it in like this, and it's lightening up the hair, but it will get a little darker in the next phase. So I like to use the shadow on the adjustment brush tool only, and I just kind of paint through the different areas of her hair here. Now I'm going to go to the adjustment brush again. Every time you do that, your last value stays. So I want to zero out shadows. Now I want to go to saturation because I want to bring out the hair a little bit more. And now I'm brushing in saturation. So whatever I have brought out with the shadows, I'm now sharpening is not the right word. I'm now saturating those areas with those natural colors. Not adding color, just using what she's already got. And what I'm going to also be doing here with this particular brush is I'm going to be adding saturation to the non-skin areas. Remember the ones that we did over in Photoshop? So now that we're in Lightroom, I click done here. I'm going to change the size, move the image up, and now I'm going to start painting in saturation on anything that has color. .55 is the value I'm using. We'll go over to her right arm, same thing, saturation on all the tattoos. Now obviously you don't have to do this if you're editing an image that doesn't have tattoos, but if you do, I find that this is really going to help the final product out a lot. I think this helps too. I just kind of paint right over that. So now what I like to do is go over here and look at the clarity. Clarity is what I use to sharpen it. And I slide this over back and forth. As you can see, as I slide it, it's on 0 now. I'll take it up to like 20 something. I really like that, and I follow that up with contrast. Not a whole lot, just bump it a little bit. And I think it really brings out the image. And then the last adjustment that I like to make is with vibrance. No more saturation, just vibrance right here. A slight uptick, in that. And I really like the way that the image came out. So what we're going to look at now is the before and after. See, looks good. That's before, that's the first image. But after we finished it, it looks like this. So our finished product is on the left and our original is on the right. So as you can see, like if you start off, for example, let's look at the hair right there. That's really from the original image. All I did was get inside of it with shadows right here, sharpened it up and gave it some saturation, and I really think it helps the image out with the hair. Looking at the colors here, again on the finished image, look at that tattoo, and look at our original image. It just looks so much cleaner, so much sharper. On the finished image, if you look at the lips, the lipstick looks a lot better, and I just think it's a much cleaner look. Now you may remember we talked about the original image with her nose, and when you could see it, so let's start with the forehead. Actually, that texture that we showed you still there. Here on the nose, she still had, that's her skin, that's who it is. I don't want to get rid of that. I think it's important to keep that there. So overall, that's kind of how I do my frequency separation. All in all, about 1 hour and 20 minutes. I condensed it down for here, but let me know what you think. Let's hop back over and we'll close out the video.
That's my frequency separation workflow. I hope that this becomes a reference video for you, maybe one that you will bookmark that you can go back to periodically. Key takeaways: I didn't do any dodge and burn there. I didn't use any curves. Both of those are fine, and you may have those as part of your workflow. That's cool. I just don't, to get the look that I want, which is just something that's clean, non-destructive, right? I'm not trying to turn her into something that she's not. I'm just cleaning it up, balancing some skin tones, and I like working with colors. I probably could have picked an easier shot / model to do this video with, because with Hunter, she has some amazing tattoos, and part of the edit for me is getting into each one of those and making sure that I'm representing the colors the way that they are supposed to look. So that takes a significant amount of time. So think about it, if you were just doing a headshot of someone, or someone with clothes on, or someone who didn't have as much body art, or the colors of the bra and other things, you could probably get through it a lot faster. But for me, when I edit, it isn't about speed, it's about getting it right, getting what I want to capture within the portfolio. And I took the time to learn Lightroom and Photoshop so that I could edit my own images the way that I want to. So there's probably faster ways to do the frequency separation than I did. Guaranteed. The places where I'm going back and erasing and stuff, there's got to be a 180-degree flip of that could take all that away. Totally get that. I don't think editing is hard. I think it should be fun, and I'm hoping that this video gives you some insight not only into how I edit, but maybe it'll help you, pick up your Wacom pen and get back in there and give it a try. So how do you edit your photographs? Particularly, how are you editing your portraits? I would love to know. Once again, I thank you guys so much for being here. I know this one was a little longer, but again, a reference video with a lot of step-by-step steps that I really don't want you guys to miss. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, I would appreciate it if you would. It helps the channel tremendously. And I look forward to bringing you guys the next one. Look forward to hearing from you. Stay safe.